You're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro.
No. It's with me, Matt Ohayon.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup. Brought
to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. 8.6 beer. Intense by nature. And Locage. If the last time you went to Locage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Locage. It's gonna be sick.
Happy Friday night, everyone. I'm Matt Ohayon. No, you don't have the Italian stallion, Tony Marinaro, tonight. As we announced yesterday, I'm taking over the Fridays, so you have me, the Hebrew Hammer. And you'll notice that that handwriting at the top, Matt Ohayon, that I did not write that. That is... my handwriting is chicken scratch compared to that. Anyways, busy week in sports, busy week for the Habs. You know, they only played 2 games, surprisingly, but Carey Price spoke to the media. We had a trade this week, albeit a very small one, a minor league deal. Tonight, we got the World Series. The Houston Astros were up 5-0. Philadelphia Phillies coming all the way back, tying it up 5-5. Someone else who's had a busy week. By the way, Sick Podcast brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, and it is a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also brought to you by 8.6 Beer, intense by nature. The beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. So before I interrupted myself, also having a very busy week, from the Montreal Gazette, he joins us live from St. Louis, Mr. Stu Cowan. Stu, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. The travel not beat you up too bad over to St. Louis?
No, it was pretty easy. Actually, I flew yesterday through Chicago, and the Canadiens practiced today at the Blues practice facility, which is about a 25-minute drive outside of St. Louis, out in the suburbs. So it's been good.
So I want to start there. Let's start with what's coming up before we get to earlier in the week. You said the Canadiens practiced today. Yesterday they had a game. They won in Buffalo, which is a great result for them. Brendan Gallagher, 2 goals. What did you notice that was different from yesterday's game to practice today? And I guess the question I'm leading into is I want to start with, is Mike Hoffman still on that top line?
Well, Hoffman, today there wasn't really more or less line setups. There was different drills they were doing in that, but it looks like he is. I mean, you have to think they're showcasing him at this point and they want to trade him. That would explain what they're doing with him right now. He's struggled since the start of the season, at least putting up points. There's still some question marks. Slavkovsky practiced today using a full contact jersey. I don't know if he's going to play. We haven't heard yet if he's going to play on Saturday. There's no morning skate tomorrow. They've canceled the morning skate for Saturday, so we won't find out until about 4 o'clock tomorrow when Marty St. Louis speaks with the media. But with Hoffman, they've had him on the power play. They've had him on the number 1 line. He's not part of the future of this team moving forward. That's pretty obvious. I think he even knows that. So I think they're trying to showcase him and put him in positions where hopefully he can succeed for them, and they might be able to get something in return. I know the last game at the Bell Center, there were a ton of scouts there. Curtis Lasician, the Colorado Avalanche scout, I think he's racking up a lot of Marriott points in Montreal. I think he's been at almost every game since the preseason started. I don't know if that's who they're looking at or who they're looking at. But it'll be interesting to see as this moves forward. Kent Hughes wants to move guys like Hoffman and some of those older guys with a lot of money on their contracts and open up spots for some of the younger players. So we'll see what happens over the next little while here.
Yeah, and I guess it'll come to that point eventually when we see bodies start moving out of off the team into new cities, and I guess that's kind of maybe a calming message for Canadiens fans listening right now, because, a lot of them are getting frustrated seeing guys like Hoffman and like Dadonov that have been, scrutinized because of their recent performances being in the lineup, and guys like Rem Pitlick who are younger and just signed fresh contracts and being out of the lineup.
Well, these guys have a plan. And the thing is that Jeff Gorton, Kent Hughes, Martin St. Louis, Jeff Molson too, they're all on the same page. Like, this is all about building this team for the future and moving guys like Hoffman and Dadonov, and that is part of it. And, that's what they're looking at. They're trying to get as much as they can in return. Ken Hughes has already said that he wants to get another first-round pick next year. If Sean Monahan keeps playing the way he's been playing, he might be a guy that they can get another first-round pick for next year. But they have a plan, and it's fun to watch. And Canadiens fans can get upset that why is Hoffman on this line and why is Dadonov playing? Well, they have a reason for it, and they've been very open, this management team, about what they're looking at. They want their young players to play and develop. Look at the ice time that the young defensemen are getting right now. Part of that has to do, obviously, with the injuries to Edmondson and Matheson. But, even with Slafkovsky, people are upset, why is he on the fourth line? Marty St. Louis started off as a fourth liner in the NHL. Marty doesn't want to rush guys and put them into positions where they're going to fail. Slafkovsky has said he's going to be a power play guy in the future, but right now he wants him to sit on the bench and watch the power play. He's been injured the last couple of games, which has obviously not helped him as far as the development going forward. He looked good at practice today. I'd be surprised if he doesn't play tomorrow against St. Louis. Again, we won't find out until about 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. But it's been a long time since the Canadiens have had a plan moving forward for the future. And this is a rebuild, whatever. They don't like using that word, rebuild, retool, whatever, but it is a rebuild. And so far, they've made a lot of good moves moving to make this team better moving forward. And when the season started, who thought they would have been 4-4 after 8 games? It took them 15 games last year to get their 4th win. So far, everything's looking good. And I think people just we're getting upset, like a Hoffman, you said, or a Dadonov. Just got to look at the big picture. And that's what Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes and Marty St. Louis are doing. They're looking at the big picture. They don't expect this team to be a really good team this year. There'll be moves made at the trade deadline, if not before, that are going to make this team not as good right now or not as good this season, similar to what happened last year. But there's a plan moving forward. And so far, to me anyway, I'm impressed by what this new management team has done and the way Marty St. Louis is coaching this team.
Yeah, and I read your column this morning in the Gazette, and you spoke a lot about Martin St. Louis, and specifically about Caden Gooley has just been off to a fantastic start to his NHL career, and Jordan Harris, and it was all about calculated risks. So did they give any specific examples of these calculated risks that they've been that Martin St. Louis is teaching them about, and what the right risk to take is?
First of all, Caden Gooley and Jordan Harris, apart from being very good hockey players, are very smart guys. They're really impressive. It's hard to believe they're 21 and 23, I believe their ages when you talk to them. They're, before the start of the season, Rob Ramage said that if Jordan Harris wanted to be president of the United States, he probably could. And he's just a really smart kid on and off the ice, and Gooley's the same way. They play smart on the ice, but they don't want them to make the safe play all the time. They don't want them to just chip it off the glass and get it out. They want them to look for open lanes. They want them to move forward. I spoke with Kovacevic, and I mentioned that in my column today, and he spoke about a game last week where he came up through the neutral zone with the puck, and he bounced it off the boards. As he said, not a horrible play, but the safe play. We got to the bench, and Stefan Robida said there was an open seam. You have to look for the seam. Second period, you had a similar play, did the same thing, chipped it off the boards, the safe play, which a lot of young defensemen want to do because they don't want to make that big mistake, right? Got back to the bench, and Robida again said to him, the lane was there. You got to look for the lane. Later in the game, came up the same play. You saw Brendan Gallagher breaking up the middle through a lane. He hit him with a pass. He went in and had a scoring opportunity. Go to the game in Minnesota, same type of play. Kovacevic comes up. He makes sort of a blind pass into the middle, picked off. They go down. Minnesota scores the winning goal. So that's calculated risk. So he made a mistake there. But the thing with this coaching staff is they don't punish guys for one mistake or two mistakes. If as Marty St. Louis says, if it becomes a trend and they keep making the same mistake over and over and over and over again, we have to sit down with guys and work with them. But everybody makes mistakes. It's a game of mistakes. And as my column I said, it's a game of mistakes, and it's a game of calculated risks. So they're teaching these young players, especially the young defensemen, don't always look for the safe play. You have to take some risks sometimes, but they have to be calculated risks. And you're going to make mistakes, and don't worry about it. When you make a mistake, we're going to sit down with you afterwards, explain to you what the mistake was, show you some other options, and move forward. If they keep repeating the same mistake over and over, then it's a bit of a problem. But for so long with the Canadiens, I think they've killed the confidence of so many young players, forwards and defensemen, just because they played scared. They were terrified of making a mistake. Marty St. Louis has the bonus right now. Dominic Ducharme last year, after going to the Stanley Cup final, they still wanted to win. So he had less of a leash, I guess, or he didn't have the same tolerance for guys making a mistake as Marty St. Louis has. But this entire management team is on the same page now. So right from the top, right from Jeff Molson all the way down. They're willing to live with the mistakes these young players are going to make, but they don't want them to always make the safe play. And that's really going to pay dividends, I think, moving forward for this team.
Sick podcast. Also brought to you by La Cage. If the last time you went to La Cage was when the Habs won the cup, it's time you go back. The menu will surprise you. Also, if you've been there the last time the Habs won the cup, not to make you feel old, Stu, but I wasn't even born. So, sorry about that. So you talked about Caden Gooley, and you talked about mistakes in that column. And even before I feel like if I was in your position, I would have written something pretty similar, because you saw that last night. Caden Gooley makes a mistake on Jeff Skinner in the second period. Granted, a fantastic move by Skinner and a great finish. It's a goal scorer's goal. And then, shift off, talk to Stéphane Robidas, talk to Martin St. Louis on the bench. The next period, the guy rips a shot that, I don't think he even thought he could shoot the puck that hard. So I think it's just really refreshing for the players to play under, like you said, play under a staff like that, you don't have to worry too much about making the bad play as long as you're going to make up for it down the road.
Well, refreshing is a good word. I mean, look how deep into the offensive zone Gooley was when he scored. He was down, by the hash mark, by the faceoff circle. And what a shot. There's a game, the previous game, I think it was the previous game, it was Jordan Harris and Kovacevic, both pinched at the same time. They were both in the slot. But the wingers came back and backed them up. So, as I said, they're all on the same page, not only the management, but also the players. They want the defenseman to pinch. You see how often the defenseman pinch now, whether it's to try and keep the puck in the offensive zone or when there's a scoring opportunity to push forward. We saw Jack Guy the other night. He had a place where he came in as a trailer late. Nick Suzuki threw a pass back to him. He sort of tried to play it off his skate, missed it. They went down the other way against Minnesota. Minnesota scored. It was a mistake by Jack Guy. He probably pinched in a little too much. He didn't anticipate the pass. It wasn't a great pass from Suzuki either. It was a mistake that resulted in a goal, but he wasn't nailed to the end of the bench for the rest of the game. He went out and he played well the rest of the game. Jack Guy had a pretty good game after that. And he said after the first period, he sat in the locker room and just told himself, okay, get over this. And he at that point, he said, I need to simplify things maybe a bit. So there are times where we're talking about those calculated risks. So there's nights when maybe you're not having on top of your game. That's going to happen in an 82-game season. So those are the nights maybe you don't take as many calculated risks as you would on another night. When you have everything going, you will. But it's Jordan Harris, if in that column I wrote, he had some really great, he said, it's a mature way of looking at the game, is the way he said that Marty St. Louis teaches it. They want make the puck do the work. And as Jordan Harris said, he says, Marty Louis says, every mistake is correctable. Everything you do wrong, we can fix. Don't worry about it. And I go back to last year when Jordan Harris first got called up by the Canadiens. And he said, Marty St. Louis told him, you're going to make 3 or 4 mistakes every game. Don't worry about them. You're going to want to have them back, but you can't. You're going to learn from them. And Jordan Harris told me what a weight off the shoulders that was for him. Imagine a kid coming from university hockey, playing for the Canadiens. It's hard enough to play hockey when you're not nervous. At any level, whether you're a kid or an old timers, whatever level you play or whatever you do, when you're nervous, you're going to make more mistakes. And he said that was such a weight lifted off his shoulders, having Marty St. Louis tell him, you're going to make 3 or 4 mistakes a game. Don't worry about them. We're going to fix those mistakes. Play your game. That's the thing with Marty St. Louis. Play your game. These guys got to the NHL because they're talented hockey players, all of them. Even guys on the fourth line are talented hockey players. Play your game. Play to your strengths. Play to your skills. Take calculated risks. Don't worry about it. We're going to teach you from the mistakes. So there's so much teaching going on now with this Canadiens team compared to in the past. Adam Nicholas now is their skills coach or their player development coach. You see him on the ice before practices, after practices. Slafkovsky's talked about how much he has helped him looking at video, both of himself and other players in the NHL with similar builds and similar styles to him to try and improve his game. I think that's one reason why they've kept Slafkovsky with the team, is they want him with the coaches they have here. He continues to progress, or at least before his injury, he was continuing to get a little better every game. As long as he does that, I think he's going to stay here. So there's a lot, as Marty said after the game the other night, they don't judge the result. The result isn't everything. Whether the Canes win or lose every game is not the main thing for them this year. It's how these young guys are developing and if they're playing well. And we saw that in Buffalo with Sam Montembeault. Here's another guy. He played great. He had a great game against Buffalo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm happy you went there because, there's making those calculated risks as you put them in your column. But also, I feel like it's not only when you have the support from the coaching staff, but when you have your support from your teammates, namely your goalie, who's going to stand on his head like Sam Montembeault did last night, it adds that extra level of confidence to your game. And I mean, just nothing but positives and nothing but good things to say about so far for Jake Allen and Sam Montembeault really stepping in and stepping up to the plate in the absence of Carey Price.
Yeah, well, Jake Allen spoke about Sam Montembeault today. And, you remember last year, the last half of last season, Sam Montembeault played with a pretty serious wrist injury. It was his right wrist. He had required surgery after the season. But the Canadiens are in a situation where Carey Price obviously wasn't there. Jake Allen had been hurt also. He had groin issues. Every time they called up Caden Primo, he looked sort of like deer in the headlights in the NHL and showed that he wasn't ready. They needed somebody to play. And Montembeault was willing to suck it up, play through pain, play through the wrist injury. Some nights he didn't look good. He got shelled a lot of nights with a lot of shots, but he played through it. And Jake Allen spoke today about that's a reason why the Canadiens rewarded him with a 2-year one-way contract this summer after he had the surgery, $1 million, whether he plays in Montreal or in Laval. He took more than one. He took a few for the team last season when they went down the stretch and getting him bombarded every night. But he sucked it up. He played through the pain, and the Canadiens rewarded him. And I think that goes a lot with this management team. I think that says a lot to other players that we're sort of a family here. And if you're willing to suck it up and take some punishment for the team, you'll be rewarded for it. And they rewarded Sam Montembeault for it. And right now, after the game last night in Buffalo, he played really well and seemed more confident. Obviously, his wrist is better. And with Jake Allen there, he's a great mentor for him. Montembeault's going to turn 26 this weekend on Sunday, and Jake Allen's 32. And Jake Allen said that he really started learning the goalie position or improving when he was 29. He said that's when everything started falling into place for him. So, when you talk about Caden Primo, he's 23. A lot of people look at him or have said that he's maybe the goalie of the future. Goalies develop a little later. It takes time, unless you're a Carey Price, as Jake Allen said today, with just an incredible amount of talent. It takes time for goalies to develop. So Sam Montembeault is still relatively young for a goalie. Caden Primo is really young for a goalie. By signing Jake Allen to that 2-year contract extension this summer, which means he has 3 more years left, it buys some time for the Canadiens to sort of figure out who the goalie of the future is going to be. Is it going to be Caden Primo? Is it maybe going to be Montembeault? Or are they going to have to go outside and draft a goalie or acquire another goalie in another way? But right now, if Montembeault and Allen can keep playing the way they're playing, it's going to be good for this team moving forward.
And we're going to stick to the goalies. I want to get your take on this because Carey Price held a pretty lengthy, somewhat emotional press conference at the beginning of the week, talking about his current state of health and the future of his career and all that. I mean, it seems as if the last 2 times we've seen Carey Price speak, it's the most open he's ever been. And the way I read that, because I mean this better than most, including myself. He's not been that guy his entire career. He's a man of very few words. So is that, just, am I reading too much into this into saying, maybe he knows himself, even though he says he'd like to play again and he hopes he can? Do you think deep down he knows that, it's probably not going to happen for him?
Yeah, I think he knows it's over. And part of him, as I've said before, I mean, I don't think Shea Weber wanted to play anymore. I think Shea Weber's body was so beat up. He was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I think Carey Price really did want to play again. And if he wouldn't have come back last season and played at the end, if he didn't want to, he really wants to keep playing hockey. But I think he's realized he can't. But there's insurance that becomes involved now, on LTIR. The teams have insurance on the contract. So an insurance company, you got to say you're trying to come back or you're doing your best to come back. But I honestly think Carey Price wishes he could come back and play. He'd love to come back and play. He'd like to come back playing better than he did, the games when he came back last season. But I think he also realized it's not going to happen. He talked about how he would need that second surgery, which he said is very invasive, and he's worried about it. He's worried about his quality of life moving forward with his children and whatnot. So I think he knows he's done. Hard to accept, I'm sure. But you're right. I mean, that's the most open, the most words Carey Price has said in any news conference I remember. He was smiling. He was laughing. As you said, he's a man of few words. He's a man of even fewer words with the media. He hates dealing with the media. He doesn't enjoy doing it. He never really has. But it was the most at ease or comfortable I've seen Carey Price in a long time, which was nice to see with everything he's gone through. He came out the next day, I believe it was, with Arpon Basu, the story in The Athletic, saying that his issues he had were with alcohol when he went into the NHLPA player assistance program. So it's a lot for him going on right now, looking at a career being over. Never wanted the Stanley Cup, the one thing missing for him, dealing with his alcohol issues. Now he's back at home. It's a total change in life and lifestyle for him. So for me personally, I was just happy to see him being happy. Like, he seems to be happy and content where he is. He was at the Alouettes game with his family there a couple weekends ago, or last weekend. So he seems to be in a good place right now. And I'm happy for him for that.
Yeah. And, I just want to bounce this off you because, a lot of new Canadians fans, I would put myself in that range because, once Carey Price came into the organization, that's when I really, as a fan of the team, started seeing success in the organization because, I'm growing up, 1997, I was born. That's the start of some dark years for the Canadians. History didn't start with my age, and I know that.
I've told this story many times. The 5 years I went to high school, the Canadians won 4 Stanley Cups. So it was an annual event where you skipped school one day to go to the Stanley Cup parade.
Yeah, and I'm sure, I'm even sure schools even counted that into the schedule when they were planning out the curriculums. But in your eyes, what was the shining moment for Carey Price as a Montreal Canadian? Of course, he went to the Stanley Cup final, but there were no fans. Limited fans in the building. What do you think was his shining moment as a Montreal Canadian?
I still think it was getting to the Stanley Cup final a couple of years ago, because when we know now how beat up his knee was and how damaged he was, and he was asked at that news conference, how did you play through it? And he said, I basically bit on the stick and sucked it up. So to play at the level he did, both he and Shea Weber, to play at the level they did with the injuries there were, is quite remarkable. I mean, the Canes don't get to the Stanley Cup final without Carey Price. I go back to Game 6 of the first round against Toronto. They got outshot 13-2 in overtime, and they won. One of those shots goes in, and the Canes are eliminated in the first round. And probably a lot of things changed. Maybe Marc Bergevin is fired right away, or a lot of things might have changed. But Carey Price stood on his head in that overtime period. I remember watching that. They were playing the 4 defensemen. The 4 Clydesdales, as Luke Richardson called them, over and over. And you could see Ben Sherrod and Petrie and Weber, and they were just exhausted. They could barely get the puck out of their end. And Carey kept making these saves, and then they got a chance down the other end, and they scored, and they won. They went on to the Stanley Cup final. So for me, that's the thing. For me personally, I understand there were the fans. There wasn't the reaction in the Bell Center. For me, just what he was able to do, now that we know the pain that he was playing with and the damaged knee that he was on, it's really remarkable. And the only thing missing from his resume is a Stanley Cup. He mentioned one of the interesting things he mentioned at that press conference is that he still wants to win one, even if it's not as a player, leading to believe he'd like to stay in hockey in whatever capacity that might be. But he has the Canadians franchise record for games played. He has for a goalie, Canadians franchise record for wins by a goalie, playing for some bad teams for a lot of years. If he had played in the glory days, I was talking about back when I was in high school with Guy Lapointe and Serge Savard and Larry Robinson in front of him, he would have won some Stanley Cups too. So, you look at what he did with the Olympic team when he was, he obviously had great defensemen in front of him, but he was outstanding.
Oh, yeah, I mean.
So the fact he doesn't have a Stanley Cup on his resume, to me, he'd obviously like to have one, but to me, that doesn't define who Carey Price was as a goalie. He was the best goalie of that generation. He had some ups and downs like all goalies, but they used to do that NHLPA player poll every year, and they would ask who's the best goalie in the NHL, and it was like 85% of the players would say Carey Price.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Stanley Cup thing. I feel like a lot of people my age or around my age that just haven't seen the 1993 team. Everyone, born 94 and onwards, we kind of get annoyed when we hear, the people who have been around for those cups and they take that stance of, oh, well, he's never won a Stanley Cup. He's never won a Stanley Cup. We kind of got annoyed at that. And, we the classic thing I always say is, it's harping too much on the past. That's not going to happen again. There were 6 teams in the league when they won most of those.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And then I was in the building on when Josh Anderson scored in Game 4 and forced that Game 5. And I was there as a fan. I cheered. And when Josh Anderson scored that goal, it clicked in my head. Like, I got it. I got the whole mysticism around the team and around those older teams, because there's quite really nothing like it in North American sports, in my opinion, at least.
Well, go back to that Stanley Cup final too, the Saint Jean Baptiste game, when I think it was a Lehkonen who scored the winning goal.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, outside the Bell Center was just crazy. I mean, it was just insane. So for you guys who never saw what a Stanley Cup parade was like, that was, to me, probably the closest you guys have ever come to it, experiencing it, was that atmosphere outside the Bell Center. Because for me, someone who saw a lot of Stanley Cup parades back in the day, I was like, wow, this is really something else.
So I want to get back to the current team as it is, the players on the ice, that I should say. They went 2-2, 1-1 this week, excuse me. A loss against Minnesota, a win against Buffalo. The team's 4-4. I mean, I don't think anyone expected that at this point in the season.
Oh, no, especially not with Cole Edmondson and Mike Matheson out.
Well, that's it. And, logic would dictate that they're only going to get better when those guys come back. The classic line that Bob McKenzie always throws out is, you are what you are by American Thanksgiving. Well, there's 12 games till then for the Canadians. I guess it's too early to say, are they a 500 team? But I guess I'm going to throw it at you anyways, because are they a 500 team? And if they're not, when's this, I don't want to call it magic because nothing crazy is happening. But when's this, this jump in their step going to fizzle out? Because it is an 82 game season.
I think 500 is a realistic expectation for the team. I don't know if they'll get there. As I mentioned earlier, there's going to be trades made at the trade deadline or before then that will make them better in the future, not necessarily better right now. A lot depends on goaltending. If Jake Allen gets hurt, we're going to have a hard time being a 500 team. But I think it's a realistic expectation now. I probably wouldn't have said that at the beginning of the season. But, you see Jordan Harris and Caden. I mean, Kaelin Gooley's playing over 20 minutes a game. Not only playing over 20 minutes a game, he's playing those 20 minutes against the other team's best line. He has David Savard as his partner, and no knock on David Savard. David Savard's been fantastic for Kaden Gooley. Every time you talk to Kaden Gooley, he always mentions David Savard and how much he's helped them on and off the ice. But David Savard's not really a top pairing defenseman, and neither you would think Kaden Gooley at 21 years old, you wouldn't expect him to be a number one pairing defenseman either. But he's shown that he probably is. He's the proof's in the pudding. He's played monster minutes. He's been really effective offensively and defensively. We saw the goal last night. So it's really a bright future when you look at this team on defense with him and Harrison. I mean, and Jackeye, like Arbor Jackeye, who would have thought this kid would be playing the way he's been playing? I mean, we all knew he was tough. We all knew he could fight. Matt Cassian, I'm sure, has never been ragdolled in his life in a hockey fight until he fought Jackeye. But he's much more than that. I mean, he can move. He moves for a big guy. He can move the puck. He makes smart decisions with the puck. I think he's got a pretty good shot, too. I think we're starting to see the shot coming more and more also. He's good at walking the line and getting the puck through. So there's a lot of reason looking forward for this team to be optimistic with, going into the season, everybody thought, okay, goaltending and defense are going to be the biggest concern. They're probably not going to have a big problem scoring goals. Well, they've had more problems scoring goals than they have playing defense. The defense has been really good. The goaltending has been solid. It's only 8 games, like you said, but there's reason for optimism. And as I said, before the season started, if you had asked me if I thought the Canadiens would be a 500 team, I'd say no. Right now, I think it's a possibility.
And just a couple more for you before I let you go and go enjoy some nightlife out in St. Louis. One of the questions from one of our viewers came in. It says, "Hi Stu, hi Matt and Stu. I love the line of Anderson, Andy. Well, it says really Andy, Devo, and Galley last night. Do you think Martin St. Louis will keep them together for a bit? I think so. I think they look good, and it's kind of hard when, like you said off the top, they're trying to showcase Mike Hoffman, so that's the reason why he's at the top there. But I had hopes for Anderson to be that top guy, but I think they found something with that line.
I think they have. And Anderson, there was a lot of talk about him playing with Suzuki and Caulfield, but Anderson's sort of a straight up and down player. He's hard, goes hard to the net. I don't think he has no knock on him, but I don't think he has the same hockey IQ as Caulfield and Suzuki have. A lot of players don't. Sean Monahan's a really smart hockey player. That's why I think that, Marty St. Louis had him playing with them. But yeah, that line you're mentioning, I could see that sticking together. But like in today's hockey, lines don't stay together that long. It seems, you lose a game, they move, guys get hurt, things happen here. Slafkovsky got hurt, he's out of the lineup. So will they stick together? Yeah, but I mean, it's rare now you see lines stick together for more than 5-6 games, I would say.
Yeah, that's unless of course you're Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, and
well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
That's the only one.
At some point, I think we'll see a line with Caulfield, Suzuki, and player to be named later that will be together for a while. And they're still trying to figure that one out. But for me right now, Sean Monahan is a good fit with those two guys.
And last one for you, because I mean we've gone this far without mentioning him too much. Who's Cole Caulfield? He's the goals. I'm not sure what the math is on what his projection is, but what's a realistic number for this guy now that it's we're 8 games into the season and he already has 5 goals?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he doesn't score 30, and I think 40 could be a possibility. But I'd say a realistic goal for him would be 30.
All right, Stu. Well, I'll let you go for now. So go enjoy a beer for me, and enjoy that live music out in St. Louis.
All right, thanks a lot.
Have a good one. All right. Thank you very much to Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette. The Sick Podcast is brought to you also in part by sportsbuffshop.com. You see the Sick sweater? This is a Sick sweater. Also, we have Matt Ohayon catchphrase tees. I haven't thrown any out at you yet, but I have a feeling in the next season or in the next segment I will. So shop all your sports license lifestyle apparel, including hoodies, caps, and tees of your favorite teams and all major leagues, as well as our own Sick merch at sportsbuffshop.com. Use the code SICK10 for 10% off all their items. I was going to give you an update on the World Series, but it's they're showing a replay right now, and I've been interviewing Stu, so I haven't had a chance to look. But it's Friday, which means we're 2 days away from the best day of the week. Thank God it's football.
TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. It's also football with Matt Ohayon.
Burrow hooks a pass, wide open, Chase, touchdown, Bengals.
So our next guest will not be a fan of this jersey. We're proud at the Sick family to welcome Andy McNamara of UFF Sports, who will be doing a Cleveland Browns podcast for us. Andy, how are you doing?
Matt, doing good, my man. Yeah, well, I've seen a Bengals jersey coming in. I don't know what's going on. I don't like it.
Listen, I had to throw you right off your game because you saw the sweater, and that's the magic of it's the magic of TV right there.
That's right.
So now, I mean, I just want to get this out of the way off the bat because you heard the intro, you heard Ian Eagle say touchdown, Burrow to Chase. I'm a bit somber tonight. We'll get to that a little later. Let's talk about last night's game. First and foremost, the Ravens, they go into Tampa Bay. They beat the Bucs 27-22. I mean, I don't know. This game was, before the beginning of the season, you'd think this is one of the best games of the year. And with the way the season's been going for both these teams, frankly, kind of a dud. It ended up being, I guess, an entertaining game at the end. But yeah, I don't know what your take on was that. Like Baltimore, I'm not impressed.
No, I guess, first of all, I assure you, I'm not being interrogated. The way that the pot lights in the basement. Okay, full disclosure, my studio is upstairs. The kids are asleep. I'm in the dungeon here. I'm in the basement, so I got the hot lights on me. I feel like I'm under the pressure here. So that's why I'm a little washed out. But listen, Matt, you're absolutely right. It was weird. We never expected it was okay. Well, Tom Brady's not going to lose 3 in a row. Come on, how many times? He's got the boulder chip on his shoulder. He'll figure it out. Well, he didn't figure it out. And the Ravens didn't look great either, but they got the win. And we're seeing in this AFC North, every single win is crucial. Like, there's only going to be one team out of this division that makes the playoffs. I truly feel that. And it's going to be the winner of that division. So the Ravens didn't play anywhere close to a perfect game, but they got it done. The one thing that I'm interested to see going forward, Mark Andrews, that's the second game in a row where he didn't do much. Now, he left with an injury, granted. But I wonder how that develops, because if you take that away from Baltimore, from Lamar Jackson, and Bateman's out too now, That's a concern if you're not going to run the ball.
Well, that's where I wanted to go next, because at the beginning of the season, we knew Lamar had his contract. It's up for renewal at the end of the year. He bet on himself, didn't take the contract that the Ravens offered him. And I talked to Aniello and Sammy before every show. We almost talk football, and especially before last night's show, I said to them, I mean, this guy Lamar Jackson, it just seems like with every passing game, he's throwing away dollars. I don't know if you're reading it the same way.
Yeah, 100%. As a Browns fan, I'm like, please, Baltimore, pay him all the money, all of the money. Put all of your cash into Lamar Jackson, who will, I truly feel, will be closer to irrelevant than a MVP within the next couple of seasons. Because guess what, people? Defensive coordinators in the NFL, they're really smart and they get paid $1 million to figure you out. And if the strategy still is to get the quarterback to throw the ball, if that's the end game, you're not long to be a superstar in this league. I truly feel that. And you're absolutely right. He's throwing money away. Now, he's still going to get paid. But if you're Baltimore, you have to think of it this way. Okay, am I going to give this guy a 5-year plus deal at X number, $100 million, whatever? And you bet your butt he's looking for Deshaun Watson money.
Oh, yeah.
Damn sure on that. So if you do, okay, you have Greg Roman. That's fine. You build this whole offense around the run. You have guys like, and I don't buy the argument where, he doesn't have talent around him. Well, Mark Andrews goes and makes his bad passes look good by hauling him in. And Marquise Hollywood Brown, before he got injured, looked like a damn good receiver to me when he got in front of a half-decent quarterback. So you want to pay him all the money for a guy who's going to run and got banged up last year, and we saw those injuries start to hit in. Have at it, because I'm with you. I think with every game, every pass, you start to see a little bit more of maybe why you shouldn't be bankrolling Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and on the other side of the football last night, I mean, for some people, it's maybe a celebration for them. For me, I thought it because it's the popular thing to hate Tom Brady, but I'm witnessing my childhood. I grew up watching him from the start of football till now, watching him, and it's kind of weird to see all those people who said this is the year that Tom Brady is done. Well, I mean, eventually you're going to be right when you say that, but is this it? I mean, you can never count Tom out, but do you think this is the year where it's over for Tom?
This really is starting to look like it, and it's sad because, Matt, the greats rarely go out on top, right? Look at Jordan. I remember watching him at a Raptors game with the Wizards. I was like, that's not Jordan, man. Muhammad Ali at the Emmitt Smith going to the Cardinals. These guys, it's almost like if you're a true star, you have to have it proven to yourself that you don't have it. Other people can tell you and you just try to use it, but you have to feel that you don't have it. And I think when you couple in the whole divorce, the personal stuff with Tom, it just feels like, man, you know what? That's that chip, that drive, that whatever, combined with the age, it just doesn't seem to be working this time. And you're right. People celebrating Tom Brady. Oh, yeah. You're really getting the last laugh. A guy who's got 6 Super Bowl. Yeah, good for you. Good. He's 45. And he had a bad year. Okay, yeah, you win. Sure. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. He's still slinging it out there.
Good for you.
He has 3 more fingers to fill on his other hand to fill it up with rings. It's a lot more than other people could say. So, I mean, to our listeners who don't know Andy, he specializes in fantasy sports. So if you got any fantasy questions, get them in now, because we're going to get to those a little later. Right now, what I want to do with you is I want to go through Sunday's slate of games. And I'm not going in them in any particular order, but I want to start right here because, it's interesting from a betting perspective, but also very interesting to me from a fantasy perspective when it comes to the San Francisco 49ers, who are on the road in a pick'em, they're favored, against the LA Rams. And no Deebo Samuel. What does that mean for Christian McCaffrey?
I think I love Deebo Samuel. The talent, it's so exciting when he's on the field. However, if you are not, now if you're a Deebo fantasy owner, obviously not good news. If you're not, it gives some clarity, I feel, at least for one game in the pecking order, because the great unknown, and McCaffrey got a little taste, a little sprinkle into that offense, but the great unknown when he's at full go is, how is the ball going to be shared? Because you look at Debo and McCaffrey, they're both hybrids. Debo more on the receiving side, McCaffrey more on the running side, but they're both hybrid types. And that's exciting real life wise, right? For Kyle Shanahan, you can mix it. You can, you throw in some Ayuk, you get some Kittle in there, you get all your flavors. But fantasy wise, we don't know. This week we know it's going to be Christian McCaffrey. Brandon Ayuk's value for one more week stays fantasy relevant. And George Kittle, as long as he doesn't hurt himself, he seems to cuts himself shaving, he's out. We know he can do it. The one loser on that team, and I have in one of my fantasy leagues, and is Jeff Wilson. Unless there's an injury, Jeff Wilson, you park him and he's the handcuff and you're done.
Yeah, I did that in my league because I don't know how many leagues you're in. How many are you in, by the way?
5.
You beat me by 1. I'm in 4.
I usually do 4. I got suckered into a 5th one. I usually do 4, but I got 5, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, lucky enough for me, it worked out because I had a top level, top of the order pick in 3 of my leagues. So I have Christian McCaffrey in 3 out of 4. So I was pretty happy when he moved to San Francisco. So we'll see where that goes. I mean, gun to my head, I'm picking San Francisco in this one.
Me too. If I'm taking, and like you said, it's an even, it's a pick 'em. What I look at it this way when you see a game like that. What have the Rams done to give you any confidence that they can figure this out? This offense is as flat as can be. Matthew Stafford, we talk about, Tom Brady and stuff. Fantasy-wise, he adds nothing if he's not throwing 3-4 touchdowns and no picks and 300 yards. He gives you nothing else. And then all the surrounding people, like you got Cooper Kupp as like the sure thing. You got a bit of a mess in the backfield. I have no confidence in the Rams. I'm actually surprised that the 49ers aren't favored with that McCaffrey addition. I think that's Jimmy Garoppolo isn't going to excite anybody, but the guy's gotten you to a Super Bowl and you know what you have. The iffy thing with Trey Lance was you don't know how much he's going to run around. And I know what I'm getting with Jimmy Garoppolo. He's going to dunk his way, get you 15 fantasy points. He's going to make the pieces around him fantasy relevant. So in this game, if I'm betting, depending what the odds are in sportsbook, money line, etc., I take the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So let's move on to the next game that I wrote down. Also, pretty big fantasy news out of this one. Chicago goes over to Dallas. Dallas is 10-point favorites. The latest line that I saw, no Zeke, and Justin Fields looked pretty damn good last week, didn't he?
He did. And it's nice because I'm an Ohio State fan too, so I like that Justin Fields is looking a little bit well. That whole offense, though, it's just you got who's your guy? Who's this guy? That he's Darnell Mooney? I was never bought in on Mooney. He's done nothing fantasy wise. What are you getting? Cole Kmet's a non-factor. You got David Montgomery. Okay, I want Justin Fields well, and I hope it happens. But Chicago has a lot of work to do this offseason. They traded Robert Quinn and all, so I hope it's a bit of a showcase. And we see from the Dallas side, Dak getting back into gear, and from a tight end side, boy, I want, because I have Dalton Schultz in 2 of my leagues. I'm PO'd, Matt, because that guy banged up all year, right? And so I hope Dalton Schultz and Dak can get back on the same page because we desperately need another fantasy relevant tight end that's not named Travis Kelce.
Oh, you're telling me. I mean, just as a side note, in one of my leagues, a friend of mine, through the first 4 weeks of the fantasy season, his total points that he accumulated from the tight end position was 1.7. 3 goose eggs. Yeah, not pretty at the fantasy at the tight end position in fantasy. So just quickly, on the other side of the ball, you mentioned the Dallas Cowboys. Where does the no Zeke factor play into Tony Pollard's value this week?
Yeah, if Zeke 100% doesn't play, and he's a tough guy to keep out. He's a tough guy to keep out. He'll battle. But if he doesn't, then Tony Pollard becomes an RB1. We've seen him hold some flex relevant in just himself with Zeke in there. We saw the workload increase, then get pulled back, and it's interesting. So I really see that we'll have Tony Pollard making a fantasy impact in this game. Chicago all over the place. Again, you lose Robert Quinn, right? That's another ding on you. I think Tony Pollard is a must-play smash in every fantasy league this week, even if Zeke does suit up, because we're heading into the weekend and still don't know. That means it's Tony Pollard time.
Right. The next one, I'm curious about this one because this affects me personally, which is the Arizona Cardinals heading over to Minnesota, the 5-1 Minnesota Vikings. I mean, who, except for Colin Cowherd, could have seen this coming? Minnesota is 3.5-point favorites. No James Conner. What does this mean for Eno Benjamin? Is he a must start? Where's he at?
Matt, love Eno. Absolutely love Eno, especially in PPR. DFS, his price has probably gone up a little bit more now, but DFS, he was a bit cheaper if you read the tea leaves and anticipated this and got in your contest a little bit earlier. Eno Benjamin is super underrated, and he's shown in a PPR only. Standard, I'm not interested. But PPR, Eno Benjamin can carry the load to a certain degree. Now, he's not a smash mouth guy, but he's okay in between the tackles, and he can create stuff in space. So I love Eno Benjamin. He was one of my guys watching, and if he's available on waiver wires, folks, especially buy no Chiefs or Chargers this week, you need a little flex play. I would even consider Eno Benjamin as an RB2 this week. I think it's a great matchup, and it's a case where there's really no other option. So if you want to run the ball or get those quick outs, then it's Eno.
Yeah. Okay. You just made me really happy. You settled my lineup for me. You
got to get him. That's right.
So the other one, Miami is 3.5-point favorites going over to Detroit. DeAndre Swift is finally back. Amon-Ra still questionable. Does this line jump out at you? Because at the beginning of the week, it kind of jumped out at me. Miami 3.5. Well, I got them at 3, so I was over the moon. But DeAndre Swift coming back has me a little worried, but I mean, I don't know. I think the Dolphins defense is up to this task.
Well, and the thing is too, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, because I have him in one of my leagues as well. Apparently that Q beside his name is the NFL's doing. Like Dan Campbell is like, he never had a concussion. He showed a symptom or something. Now, believe me, when Dan Campbell talks and how energetic, he's probably gotten a few headshots himself, but apparently no concussion. He's fine. It's that nonsense protocol. Amon-Ra St. Brown, good to go. No worries about it. And we know when that dude is in. Woo. Love it. The thing about the Lions, they've been, despite their record, have been really entertaining this year. Like, they've scored a lot of points, right? And they've hung in games. For the most part, the Patriots game was a stinker. And I guess the Cowboys won too, so the last couple. But, like, overall, they've been a tough out, which is more you could say for the Lions before. So that 3 to 3.5, that Miami defense, you're right, is good, but is Tua going to be, how effective is he going to be? Because if you look at and that's why I tell people, don't just look at the fantasy point average, look at those outliers. And that 6 touchdown day for Tua when he got 40 fantasy points, if you look at the rest, he's right around what Tua's been, 14, 15 fantasy points. Okay, so are they going to be able to beat Detroit by that much? I'd feel comfortable taking that. Like, I think it's a good bet. They probably win by 6 or 7. But I feel it's going to be closer than people might think. But I hope it's at least entertaining, because Detroit's been bad for a really long time.
And I want to go to another AFC matchup, AFC East matchup. And before we get to the big one, the primetime one, I want to talk about the New England Patriots, 2.5-point favorites on the road against the New York Jets, the 5-2 New York Jets. I mean, I'm at a loss. Explain that one to me.
What a time to be alive. We have the Giants at 6-1 and the Jets at 5-2, and they're both the fakest records I've seen in I don't know how long. But they've gotten to this point. So is it coaching? Is it confidence? Like, if you look at the Jets and the Giants for that matter, there's nothing you really look at like, oh man, that's a 5-2 team. It's like, yeah, Zach Wilson, who looks like he has like toddler shoulders. It's still really that draft picture came out when he walked out. It looked like it was weird. It was off-putting. And so now you have Zach Wilson trying to lead against the Patriots. That 2.5, man, I would take the Patriots all freaking day. I think Bill Belichick is going to set a reminder to the Jets fans and say, don't forget, Daddy's still here. And he's going to lay a spanking on Zach Wilson, okay? And it's going to be a smash mouth. They're going to try to just tough defense. And we are going to see a lot of Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. I think you could double up on those two Pat running backs in your fantasy lineup this week. So I'm taking the line, and I'll take the Patriots straight up too.
Wow. I mean, it's just the one thing I just can't get over is how, I understand it's the New York Jets we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But, they are what their record says there. They're 5-2.
Give them credit.
The part that just puzzles me so much is that the Patriots, they're starting Mac Jones, who got pulled after 2-3 drives last game. That's the part that puzzles me. Is you don't even know who the starter is there.
Bailey Zappi. Here's the thing. So I was in Cleveland for the Patriots game. So I saw the Bailey Zappi showcase. Be like, oh, maybe this is the next time. Like, I guarantee that was the best NFL game that Bailey Zappi will ever have in his life. The Browns have made careers out of quarterbacks having the best games they've ever played. That's why the Roethlisberger and Flacco got rich, because of my Browns. Bailey Zappi, but it's Zappi time, he's in. Well, what happened? He threw a quick touchdown. Not everyone was getting excited. 2 interceptions. That's Bailey Zappi. If you put them side by side, I saw a great meme. It was Bailey Zappi looks like if Netflix made a documentary on Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi would play. They're the same guy. They're the same freaking guy. That doesn't impress me. So what does Bill Belichick do so well? He says, okay, well, I know I don't have maybe the franchise quarterback. What do I have? 2 stud running backs and cerebral. Those quarterbacks, they're not dumb. They can distribute. So you don't force them. You put them in a situation where they don't have to go and come back, and you work the defense. I think they'll beat the Jets straight up when we start seeing a little bit of a reality check in New York.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned them. The other team, New York Giants on the road in Seattle, 3-point underdogs. I mean, they're 6-1 at a certain point. I mean, last week was the first time I had the courage. I mean, because granted it was against the Jaguars to take the Giants, but I think this team, with the way that Daniel Jones has been playing, with the exception of last week, because he had 100 yards on the ground, which you're not going to get that every week, but he hasn't been turning the ball over. And I think that's the key difference versus last year's Giants team to this one, even though obviously Saquon Barkley, ultimate equalizer there. I don't get this one either. I know the Seahawks have been good. I'm taking the Giants in this one. I'm taking the Giants.
100% with you. Here's what I think the big difference is. The Giants have been horribly coached for a long time. And Gettleman, before he got the boot, was about 20 years too late leaving. And now you have Brian Daboll, who, and we've seen before, hot shot offensive coordinators come in and fail. Well, he had I made Josh Allen the Ross. I molded him out of clay. Whatever he's saying and doing, they got the confidence. They're buying in, because on paper, there is absolutely no way you would ever guess the Giants are 6-1. They got no wide receivers. You're right. It's Saquon. That's it.
And they just traded Kadarius Toney.
They just traded Toney. I'm supposed to get excited over Wan'Dale Robinson? No, but they're 6-1. Now I got some numbers for you, because I really like this matchup. We didn't even talk beforehand. I really like this matchup. Here's why I'm with you, and we're taking the Giants. All of us are taking Big Blue. Here's why. Seattle defense ranked 29th in total yards allowed per game and have allowed the 4th most points per game. Compare that to the Giants, who have given up the 6th fewest points per game at 18.6 and ranked 19th in average yards per game. The money line last I checked, I think, was plus 130. I'm taking the Giants as a straight up win, plus 30 over Seattle. Why? Like, I like what Geno Smith has done. That's cool. They've played fine, but I think if I'm Brian Daboll, I'm using this as bulletin board material. Look, we're 6. They don't have any respect for you, blah, blah, blah. And the Giants go in and win this, and you collect your cash.
So I'm with you on that. Collect the cash. I'm all in on the Giants at this point until they prove me otherwise. And then,
why not?
Once I lose $1 on them, that's when, I come back to earth. Exactly. Yeah. Cut the loss right there. Okay, I'm going to teach you a quick lesson right here. We got to do this every show we do when we talk football, just to make Yellow and Sammy happy. We're not going to give this too much time because of the team they're playing. Tennessee Titans, 2.5-point favorites over the Houston Texans. I mean, Derrick Henry, 200 yards this game? I think I could see that happening easily.
Yes. Smash.
Yeah.
Don't overthink it, Vrabel. Don't overthink it. Hand the ball off and be done. Just be done. Now, I will say I do think for fantasy, the Tennessee defense was widely available earlier in the week. That is a terrific DST play. And on the Houston side, the only guy we're interested in at all until further notice is Dameon Pierce. That's it. There's no other topic with the Houston Titans. It's Dameon Pierce, and that's it.
And then Brandon Cook's fantasy owners who are just praying he gets traded. Just praying he gets traded to another team.
Davis Mills experiment, that was cute for a couple games last year. Come on now, right? Let's use my Browns, all the first round freaking picks we gave you.
Yeah.
And go get a quarterback.
And don't worry, we're gonna get to that game because we got some. I'm sure we both have some things to say about.
Oh.
And you've got ammunition against me. I won't forget about last year. You got ammunition.
We got nothing right now. I got Jacoby Brissett. That's what I got. I got nothing.
Yeah,
I got nothing.
Well, so I'm going to throw this one up before we get to that game because I don't think really, I'm sorry, Washington Commanders fans and Indianapolis fans. I really don't think anyone cares about that game. So we're going to talk Green Bay and Buffalo. I mean, again, one of those games, the beginning of the year, you think, wow, this could be game of the year.
Yeah. Not
so much anymore. Buffalo are 11-point favorites, but I don't know. I have this strange feeling, not that that Green Bay is going to win, but Aaron Rodgers is a gamer, and you think you are PO'd. He's PO'd. He's right. PO'd big time. Right. I think this game is very much closer than a lot of people think.
I always get nervous when you see double-digit spreads. Because even if you're bad in the NFL, that's still tough to do. However, Aaron Rodgers has been bothered, aggravated, agitated since training camp. What's it got him? Got him a 3-4 record, and they look absolutely terrible. That Davante Adams departure I knew would be significant, but it's like everything fell apart without Davante Adams. I was like, I thought he'd spread the ball around, find somebody new, even lean on an old guy like Randall Cobb, who we begged to have. Nobody. Like, it just seems weird. So you know what? I'll say this. The part of me that says Aaron Rodgers is a gamer, it makes sense. But I just feel the Buffalo Bills at home, this Rodgers Green Bay Packers team, I just haven't seen anything to lead me that they're going to put up a fight. I hope they do from an entertainment standpoint. Dial back the clock. Let's see Allen and Rodgers duel it out. That'd be awesome. But I will actually take the Bills to cover that 11. And it hurt.
Smash the 11.
You know what? I'm not going to smash it. I'm just going to just tap, just a little
sprinkle.
Just a little, do the old salt thing, right? Just a little off the elbow. That's it.
So let's get to, this is the matchup of the week for both of us, clearly.
Yes.
The Monday Nighter, Cincinnati at Cleveland. Jamar Chase, just terrible news. As a fan of the game, that's just awful news. He has the torn labrum in the hip and, a fractured hip on top of it. Thankfully, from initial reports, it doesn't too bad. It seems he'll be able to hold it off till, surgery till the offseason. But that's a tough loss. But where are you at? Where's your head at? The Browns are 2-5, but you have our number, man. You have our number.
Well, you know what? Baker had the number. My poor Baker Mayfield. All my Baker stuff. I got the little toy. I got the Feeling Dangerous shirts. I got the Now I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. Baker had the number. And that's what was so interesting. It was like Baker had the number. Oh my God. And the thing is, love or hate Baker Mayfield, the guy at least was fearless. Baker would be down, and he might throw 3 interceptions, but damn, he's going to keep throwing, and he'll throw a 4th one, right? The Browns with Jacoby Brissett, and here's the thing: the Browns should be 5-2.
Yes, I completely agree with you. By the way,
and what's been the issue? It's been the in-game coaching. The coaching has been horrific. The decision-making, the game plan. You should not have Jacoby Brissett. I don't blame Jacoby Brissett at all. We all know what Jacoby Brissett is. He's a good sort of he's a good backup. But he cannot win you a game if you're down. And what they keep doing is putting him in situations where they have to come back. They forget about Nick Chubb. I don't know how you forget about the league leader in rushing. And you have Jacoby throw it. It's like, Kevin Stefanski, head coach, you don't have Deshaun Watson yet. Okay, he's not coming back until December. So why are you slinging it like you do? It makes no sense. And coaching decisions, and bad ones at that, are why this team is at 2-5. And if we lose this game, it's done. And there's nothing to look forward to because the Texans, we gave all the picks for Watson. So I don't think I have no confidence right now. It's not the players. I have no confidence that the coaches will make the right game plan for the Browns to win this game, because they lose by like in the last second, missed opportunity. The Bengals know how to win because they've gotten to the Super Bowl. So I'll trust Cincinnati.
You know, the pessimist in me, naturally as a Bengals fan, because while we did go to the Super Bowl last year, I'm still a Bengals fan at heart. You know,
Right?
you know what
right.
I'm saying? So I mean, the pessimist in me says, yes, they're 4-1 in their last 5 games. The offense was just starting to click. Now we lose Jamar Chase. And last year, I mean, we'll count it as 1-0 against the Browns. I mean, the Browns went 1-0 because this last game of the season didn't really matter for the Bengals. So, but that was a pretty embarrassing loss. I mean, I just, something tells me, you spoke about coaching on the Browns. I've been so unimpressed outside of that game against the Falcons with the coaching decisions that Zach Taylor has made. So, I mean, that's where I'm at this point. To me, this game, it's a toss up, but of course I had to hammer the Bengals. I took out my biggest hammer, by the way, just so you know.
Just carnival size. Here's the difference. You have Joe Burrow. I have Jacoby Brissett.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you say that's the difference, but back to my pessimism. The Bengals lost to Cooper Rush. The Bengals lost to Mitch Trubisky. You know, I mean, it's just it's crazy. Yeah. That's why
you're starting to make me feel better. You're starting to make me feel better.
Well, listen, before we had you on, I had my doubts. I'm like, oh, this guy's a Cleveland fan. Don't know about this, but we see eye to eye on a lot of things here.
Essentially we're NFL cousins, right? Paul Brown started the Bengals, founded the Browns, right? Can we get rid of that stupid elf for the Browns? Oh, God, I hate that elf. I hate that elf so much. I hate that elf. I got enough problems being a Browns fan. I have to look at a stupid elf on the field too.
Yeah, I mean, you guys got like 5 logos. You can't even pick one. It's fantastic.
And we have the most logos for a team with no logo.
Yeah, the most logos for a team with logo, and the most logo. I mean, just trade in some of those logos for wins. Does that translate? Or
yes, please.
So I mean, again, okay. So Cincinnati, 3-point favorites. You know, I'm not expecting you as a Browns fan to concede, but as an NFL guy, are you taking the Bengals? Are you taking the Browns?
If I'm taking my heart out of it as much as possible, I think the Bengals win this. I think they win it. I think it's going to be close, though, like you said, because the Browns have been close in every game except for the New England game this year. Every game. Mm-hmm. And when you look at that, it gives me no reason to think otherwise. But the problem is when it comes to crunch time, the Browns go with the analytics spreadsheet with a guy up in the booth telling Kevin Stefanski what plays to call. That's real, by the way. Okay, well, the computers are cool, but how about what's happening in the game? And that's where the game's on the line. Both teams have big leg kickers. You know, Cade York, rookie for the Browns out of LSU. You got McPherson. There's that guy's awesome.
I have his jersey, by the way.
Do you really? You got kicker jersey?
Yeah.
That's so Bengals Browns. That's such a Bengals Browns thing to do. I love it.
I mean, just sorry to cut you off, but it was just, last year's playoff run was just such a insane moment for me as a Bengals fan, because me, when the Bengals are in the playoffs, I don't watch with anyone. I need by myself, nobody in the room, and I'm watching locked in on the game. Phone is on do not disturb. Nobody talk to me. And I tweeted out during the game against Tennessee, I said, if the Bengals win this game, I'm buying an Evan McPherson jersey. They won the game. I had no choice. I had to put my money where my mouth was.
It's a smart buy. I think the Bengals win in the end on a close, probably field goal. So I think that line is pretty spot on. I think the Vegas has the numbers right. That's probably how it's going to end. I'm going to be cursing. I'm going to be throwing stuff. I'm going to be upset. And the season's going to be over before November 14th.
Well, and As it usually is. Andy, I want to thank you for coming on the Stick podcast with me. So just why don't you tell everyone before I let you go, what's this Cleveland podcast going to look like?
Yes. Oh man, I'm so excited to be part of the Sick Media family. I'm super pumped about it. So we're starting the Sick podcast with me, Andy McNamara. We're going to have it Cleveland Browns, but we're also going to have fantasy football and betting. So we're going to have hot picks. We're going to have hashtag Ask Andy for fantasy football. We're going to mix it all in. So we're going to have Cleveland Browns players, analysts, talk Browns, talk about all the nonsense that goes on. What's next? What do we do? But also, hey, even if you're not a Browns fan, you can tune in for the fantasy football advice and the betting tips you need every Tuesday and Friday right here on Sick Media Network. And I can't wait. I'm very pumped to be here.
I'm very excited for that because hopefully you'll win me a lot of weeks. And if you don't, if you're wrong, naturally, I won't blame my management skills. I will blame your advice.
That's how it goes. Absolutely.
It's the name of the game. That's why I always tell all my friends, stop asking me. I don't want these losses on my shoulders.
Yeah. If you don't like the free advice, go pay for it.
Exactly. That's what it's all about. Andy, thank you so much for joining me on a Friday night. Really appreciate it. And we'll be chatting soon in the future. I'm certain of it.
Absolutely, Matt. This was a lot of fun. Go Browns.
Go Bengals. Hooday. Andy, thanks a lot. All right. So thank you, everyone, for submitting your questions. I'm sorry I went a little long. I got really excited. It's not every day I get to talk to a Browns fan and really give it to him with an audience. So I'm going to answer some of your football questions that you submitted. Thank you very much for them. So in yellow, Sammy, why don't you pop one up and I'll get it going. So this one's from Fishing. Is Buffalo the favorite for the Super Bowl? I mean, how could they not be? I mean, there's, you can make the argument that, they don't have one of those quality running backs. Well, you don't need a quality running back in this league anymore. It's a passing league. And who do they have? They just happen to have one of the best passers today outside of Patrick Mahomes. I think he's the best passer. And that hurts me to say, wearing a Joe Burrow jersey in Josh Allen. So that defense is nasty. I mean, it's really, really tough to bet against the Buffalo Bills, but I will be betting against them in week 16 when they take on the Bengals in Cincinnati. Anyways, next question. Sammy in yellow, keep firing at me. Brian Daboll, coach of the year so far. I mean, I can't see an argument as to how he can't be. He's just brought the Giants to a level where nobody thought they would be. And there's people talk about the NFC East as, the worst division in football. Well, excuse me, they're proving that wrong this year. I mean, they got the best combined record. It's 20-7, as one of our viewers pointed out. So it's really. It's amazing what he's been doing. I mean, yeah, he has Saquon. Yeah, he has a nasty defense, but that's the thing. Good teams have talent, and you see it in other places. We saw it in Cincinnati at the beginning of the season when they started the year 0-2, excuse me, and they looked terrible. It comes down to coaching. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the right game plan, you got nothing. So I don't think it's too early to call him coach of the year. I think he's right up there with Nick Sirianni of the Eagles, who are also undefeated and in the same division. We got time for a couple more. So most underachieving team with the best probability of getting things turned around. I mean, Sammy and Yellow, you guys are not going to like this answer. The first team that comes to my mind are the Colts. For me, it's the Colts or the Rams. I'm just going to go with the Rams because you guys signed the paychecks and I don't want to make you too angry. So they're Tennessee Titan fans, by the way. So in case you haven't picked that up yet, I'm going to go with the Rams. They're only 3-3. It seems like the sky is falling there. But again, 3-3. Matt Stafford hasn't looked great, but they got Van Jefferson coming back. I know that Cam Akers situations. He's gone. Forget about Cam Akers in LA. But it just seems like that's a team. They did it last year. I mean, you got to think that they'd be able to pull it together because they got the pieces still of the core of that team outside of Odell Beckham, who also went down in the Super Bowl. We'll take one more before we wrap things up. So This one's from Twitter. With Debo out, is CMC a good fantasy play? We talked about it, Andy and I, on the at the top of the segment. I think so. I really think that this is CMC smash spot. I mean, it's going to be a CMC smash spot. He's on your team. You're going to play him. But I think he has the potential to be RB1 this week, right next to Derrick Henry, who definitely has the best chance at it, playing against that Texans D. But I think so. I think CMC is in for a big week. He didn't touch the ball much last week, as Andy pointed out. I think he had 8 rushes for 38 yards, 48 yards, something like that, and 2 catches for 8 yards. But he was off of 1 day of practice. The first run of the game, I think he ran for 13 yards. I mean, the guy's eyes lit up. He's never seen holes in an offensive line that big that he could run through. So I just think CMC is in for a big, big week. The one thing going against him, he's against that Rams defense. So thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Don't worry. Tony's going to be back on Monday. I'll be back next Friday here on the Sick Podcast. Just as a reminder, the Sick Podcast is also brought to you by Playground. Playground Poker has over 600 machines, poker tournaments, and Playground casino games, daily promotions, and unmatched customer service. Why go anywhere else? Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes away from downtown Montreal. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great weekend. Happy Halloween, everyone. We'll catch you next week.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different, 8.6, intense by nature, and La Cage. If the last time you went to La Cage was when the Habs won the cup, it's time you went back to La Cage. The menu will surprise you.